Whoops, that's the wrong button to press. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. We're getting ready, as soon as I push the right buttons here, to record the next episode of the Polite Society podcast. Before we actually start going, I want to remind everybody that's watching live, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can comment on either the Facebook or YouTube video. If you're watching OpsLens, you need to go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast, or any other way. If you're catching us anywhere but on Polite Society's Facebook or YouTube channel, tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast. When we get your comment, we'll get your comment on the air, and we'll discuss it as we're going. Also, a little bit of inside baseball news here. Our normal writer is because of family reasons, he's taking a week off. So we do not have DGUs us this week. That's Dana's normal thing. We do not have DGUs. We're going to do a couple of news segments. It's going to be a short show today.
So you're saying that the quality of the show has deteriorated because Dana isn't here to support us, and since we're flying on our own, it's going to be a kind of a wing it kind of show. Is basically what I'm saying. Till the wheels fall off the bus, folks.
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be long now.
All right. Having said that, I'm going to have a real professional, meaning Masada, you bring us in here in just a few seconds if everybody's ready to go. All right, here we go. Ready. Masada Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
And it would really help if I were a true professional myself and had my show notes up so I knew what to say, even though I've said it 630 times. Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, August the 15th, 2022. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm John Richardson, and the Second Amendment Foundation is challenging California's gun show ban.
I'm Amanda Suffolk, and the Second Amendment Foundation strikes again in Minnesota.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about a story from Chicago. What we often say is when seconds are needed, the police are hours away.
So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 630 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. Hey everybody, it's Monday night, 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters. I say that being the only person in the Central Time Zone that's on your screen right now, but it's 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. That means it's time for another Polite Society podcast on Monday night. Normally I would ask Rob what he's doing, but I think after getting recovered from being overseas and underwater, he went back overseas and went underwater again, so he's not with us tonight. John, what have you been up to since the last time you've been on the air, man?
Well, since I was last on, we had visitors aged 7 and 4 in the house. Olivia and Aria visited Grandpa and Grandma. And like good, responsible gun owners, all our firearms were locked up and inaccessible to little hands, except what was on my body. And I do have a lock box right by the bed that can open with a finger, the correct finger combination, shall we say. In other news, the clock is ticking on retirement for me, which is less than a month away. And the first road trip planned is going to be to GRPC.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And we're going to do a bit of Texas. So, Amanda, what have you been doing, and do you have enough tape measures?
Well, I made it into the ladies' shooting event from Detroit article that was in Ammoland. And as Rick Hector says, they made me famous. Right? So, and for Thursday, I've been invited to the Women's Roundtable with Republican Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel and congressional candidate Madison Jessiato Gilbert. And so we'll see what the Women's Roundtable talks about. Women's issues? Roundtable issues? Maybe guns. We'll see. And past that, I've just been shooting varmints and working construction. There goes the tape measure inference, because I posted a picture today with 6 tape measures in it at the same time. Charlie, what about you?
I got to tell you, as soon as I saw your post about the groundhogs, I actually had to find a groundhog stew recipe, and I put it on your Facebook post. So I don't know if you saw that yet. This past week, I've had kind of a busy week. I did a show last Wednesday with Matt Mallory, and our guest was Stephen Williford, the Barefoot Defender, and we actually spent a lot of time talking about training and practicing. Then on Thursday, I was down in New Jersey at my summer home at Shea Petrolino, and I went to Tony Simon's diversity shoot with John Petrolino. David Rosenthal and Nick Wong from CNJFO were there, so it was nice to hang out with those guys. And they had a lot of other regular guys that are instructors. There's one guy's name is Angelo. I think there's another guy's name is Serge. So it was good to see those guys. Then I got up the next day and I headed to Long Island, and I filmed a show with Lisa Ludwig, who is an instructor on Long Island. And on my way back from New Jersey, I stopped in Connecticut to visit Holly Sullivan and check out the new CCDL headquarters. Saturday, I spent the day working, and then Sunday, I did a Utah class up in New Hampshire, and when I got home, I put on the television and I took a nap. So I had a little bit of a busy week, which is good for the soul. Paul, what has been going on with you and Susan and the Bullets?
Well, Susan, you want to go ahead and come on microphone? Most of what we've been doing, honestly, is preparing the AMCON and GRPC. Susan, let everybody know about where we're at with AMCON.
I'm working. I've almost got the schedule finalized. We still have a few spots open for registration. I'll be putting that event link out there later. Later this week, I'm going to be updating the website with pictures and bios. And that's about it.
Okay. I've been totally consumed with getting the broadcast. AMCON will happen, and I've got a great team around me that's going to make sure it happens. And I've been really concerned this week and working a lot on the Gun Rights Policy Conference broadcast. And that's been really what's been consuming me. So that's, as far as gun-related stuff, that's kind of been it. Now, I'm trying to remember, I think this may be the first broadcast we've done since Detroit. Did we? No,
we did one last week.
Okay. All right.
Detroit was
Charlie's fault.
It's 8 minutes in.
7 minutes, 4 seconds.
7 minutes and 4 seconds. Sorry, I just looked at the clock. I thought it said 7:08. No, we did one last week. It was 2 weeks ago. Was Rick's weekend?
Okay. Yeah, my time just seems to be melding all together lately. It's get up, get in the studio, and get ready for the Bullet, and do phone calls and other things for the broadcast and getting ready for that. That's been my week. So let's do this. I do want to talk to everybody really quick about Self-Defense Radio Network. All your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. As you can see, we're up there: Polite Society Podcast, Self-Defense Gun Stories, Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns, Guns Guide to Liberals. Oh, and by the way, Eye on the Target Radio is there, and so is Riding Shotgun with Charlie. You can not only listen to the shows right off the website, there's also subscription information there if you'd like to subscribe. That's at sdrn.us. And give the website a look and check it out. I think you'll like what you find. We've got a lot of great shows there. With more to come, Dan Waz has been talking with us. He wants to bring his show onto the network. I think right now it's just a matter of getting all the I's dotted and T's crossed and getting links, exchanged and all that. So new shows are coming soon. So
Rob Campbell said this when, I don't know, 3 years ago, when it. I know it was around before then, but he always said it sounded like some old radio show, like the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I always think of that whenever I say it. I think to make sure I don't sound like that when I say it is what I'm thinking.
The Self-Defense Radio Network. There you go. All right, let's go ahead. Let's step aside to break. We're going to hear from the good folks at ACLDN. When we come back, we've got our news segment. It's actually probably going to be 2 news segments, maybe 3, but we'll get to that right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership, and you stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
Everybody, welcome back to the news segment, the first news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Before we get into news, I got to get some of these comments in, mainly because this first one I got to get up simply because I'm such a fan of the name. Let me get this one. Snake Plissken over on the YouTube side says, Charlie Cook, been a good while since I've been able to watch. Good to see you all. Thanks for tuning in, Snake. And by the way, absolutely cool name. And then Simon says, Tony Simon, hello, everybody. Thanks to Charlie for coming out for the 2A4E diversity shoot and volunteering to be an instructor. I know it must have been strange not to be teaching in Utah. I was telling him earlier, he's got that private jet to just go back and forth between Salt Lake and Massachusetts, man. Nancy Pelosi's got nothing on him.
It's all that YouTube money, you know what I'm saying?
All right.
Tony's got a great thing, and anyone that's in New Jersey or Eastern Pennsylvania, come to a diversity shoot. He's got a great thing going on, and it's upbeat, it's friendly, it's positive. It's a lot of great folks. You get pizza, you get to shoot someone else's guns. Somebody else has to clean them. I'm a big fan.
Yes. That was the big thing in Detroit was they got to fire. They didn't have to pay for ammo. They got to fire a gun. There was no cleaning the gun. There was none of that. It was simply come in, have fun. I made sure everything was safe. They had fun, and then they go on about their day. It was awesome. One more comment here, and that is from Michael. Retirement where every day is Saturday, and you often wonder how you found time to go to work. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you wait.
Say, Amanda, how's that slow retirement working for you?
Yeah, I'm double and triple booked every day. It's craziness.
All right. let's actually go ahead and get off to news and keep the comments coming in, folks. Again, doesn't matter if you're on Facebook or the Polite Society Podcast Facebook or YouTube feed. You can comment. I'll get your comments on the air. We'll discuss them. If you're watching on OpsLens or anywhere else, if you're not on Polite Society Podcast Facebook or YouTube, you need to tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast. Susan, let's go ahead and get the news started, and a couple stories to start with from my boss.
The Second Amendment Foundation filed a motion for summary judgment in a federal lawsuit in Minnesota, challenging that state's ban on concealed carry by young adults between the ages of 18 and 21, alleging the ban violates the Second and 14th Amendment rights of those citizens. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court for the District of Minnesota. The case is known as Worth v. Harrington. Joining SAF are the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, Firearms Policy Coalition, and 3 private citizens in the affected age group. Defendants are John Harrington, Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, plus 3 county sheriffs, Mille-Lac County Sheriff Don Lorge, Douglas County Sheriff Troy Wolberson, and Washington County Sheriff Dan Starry in their individual and official capacities.
I'm going to go ahead and lead off on this one. The Minnesota thing, and we talked about this on the weekend edition of the Bullet. Either you're an adult or you're not an adult. If you can vote, if you can join the military, if you can sign up for a police force, if you can sign a contract, a legally binding contract, that makes you an adult. You should have your Second Amendment rights. Period. I got a bit of hot water for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it again because I still believe it. I believe if you are somewhere above the age of about 15, you ought to be able to apply and on a case-by-case basis get approved for a concealed carry permit. It's very much that young. You're going to have to prove to me you're responsible enough. But, yeah, if society says at 18 you're an adult, then by golly, at 18, you're an adult, and you get the rights of the adult until you prove you cannot handle those rights. John, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you 100%. And the only 2 things I would want to say about this, I hope the individual private citizens are actually closer to 18 than 21, because we know how long the antis will drag this out, and the state of Minnesota is going to drag this out. And once they hit 21, then their participation becomes moot. It also reminds me of a case that was in Texas. The early 2010s with James DeCruz, and how the Brady campaign just savaged this young man. They found every post he ever had on Facebook, how he had dressed up for a costume party as a gangster, and they used that against him. By the way, James DeCruz is now a Harvard Law graduate, was a prosecuting attorney in Florida, and now is a private attorney and a judge advocate general reserve officer in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that the interesting part of this is that it's going to tie right back to the federal bill that just passed through the House and the Senate that the president signed, the anti-gun bill that has hardening schools in it, mental health in it, and gun restrictions for 18 to 21-year-olds. And the increased background checks, the increased time for background checks, those things. So whatever happens here is going to be the precursor to what happens to that bill also, because I don't think it'll stand based on Bruen. And so it all just kind of leads back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to be completely out of left field here. I firmly believe that if a 14-year-old girl can have an abortion without telling her parents, then she's an adult. And on the way home from the abortion clinic, she should buy cigarettes, buy booze, get a gun license, drive home by herself, sign up for a mortgage, take out credit card loans, and do all the things that adults do, because that, to me, that's an adult decision. And part of me, like, I sit here and I kind of wonder, I'm like, okay, this is a small group of people. They're 18 to 21. I get that they're adults, but we also know that people their brains don't mature until they're 25. So I am in the camp of, well, if 18 is when you're an adult, let's be an adult. But if the left-wing folks want to raise the voting age to 18, to 16, then let's 16 be an adult. And if you get to be an adult, then you get to do adult stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was mature enough at between 18 and 21 years old to make adult decisions. I know I made them as far as college and college loans and all that sort of stuff. But there's part of me that says it's either got to be like it. I guess it needs to be black or white. Either you're an adult or you're not an adult. If you can make adult decisions, make adult decisions. If you can't make adult decisions, don't make adult decisions. I also am of the mind that says, you can't sit here and call a 27-year-old person that lives with their parents a child. They're Peter Pan, for God's sakes. They're living with their parents. They're not going out on their own. You're right. I mean,
they can be childlike without being a child.
Right. Well, exactly.
And Charlie, you said that the brain doesn't mature until 25. I think Susan would tell you there's at least one case where the brain doesn't mature after 50.
It could be a little bit older, dude. I hear you with all that. But if you're going to be an adult, be an adult. Like, do the things that adults do. And guess what, kids? It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not pleasurable. We don't enjoy it. We don't enjoy getting up. We don't enjoy going to work. We don't enjoy doing all of this crap that adults do. But it's what comes with being an adult.
I've never enjoyed a mortgage. So the other piece to this is that when you go back to Bruen again, there is nothing, when it goes back in time and Bruen references, there is nothing in that period of time that said guns could not be owned by somebody that was younger than. And so I believe that as it's pushed, the Bruen decision is going to also take age as a counter right off the table. I mean, Rob and I talked about this a lot on our show last night. And and the big thing is that we have to step back and really think about this, because it's sort of that we were in a cage, and we've been in this cage since 1934. And all of a sudden they opened the cage door and said, be free. And so we stick our head out and say we're free, and then we come back into the cage, right? Because that's where we're comfortable. And then we go back out, and then we come back into the cage. That's where we're comfortable. Mm-hmm. The door may be open, but we're back in the cage. So we have to figure out what freedom really is. And most gun owners at some point believe in law and order, and that there should be something. I mean, John led off with responsible gun owners lock up their guns so juveniles can't get them. Of course they do, but so we've got to look at this to say there's other things that we've put in place for responsible gun owners because of the irresponsible gun owner or the irresponsible something. So do we just address the irresponsible something? Do we need criminal control? Do we need, that kind of thing? But it's all going to come together. And I think it's going to take a long time for us to finally say we're outside the cage and we lock the door on our way out and we can't go back in.
And this is going to sound very hard-hearted of me, but if we get back the rights we had in 1933, eventually we're going to have criminal control, whether the left wants criminal control or not.
Right.
Yes. So someone, I think it was Patrick Collins, sent me a video of some people in Brazil, and according to it was on Instagram, so take it for what it's worth. But it was a video that said in Brazil they're letting car owners run over robbers that are using motorcycles as getaway vehicles. And so they had all these cameras and all these videos of cars that were running over people on motorcycles. And part of me's like, it seems a little crazy, but it might end people that stop robbing people on motorcycles and taking off with the loot. So I'm like, which one's gonna play out to be better? Like not running over people and letting the court system take its course, or people stopping crime by eliminating the criminals at the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to get to a couple comments in here. Snake again commented, let's be honest, the current administration was brought in on the notion the adults are back in the White House. And look how those adults act. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
The senior citizens are back in the White House.
I'll say this, at least I can put my own jacket on. And then George says, I vote hell yes for criminal control.
There you go. It'll be the Davy Crockett party.
Yes. Yes.
I'm for it. I think we need to take the Davy Crockett theme and change the lyrics to fit Rob's campaign.
All right, Susan, before we get way out in the weeds, we got another Second Amendment Foundation story.
It's too late. The Second Amendment Foundation has filed a federal lawsuit challenging California's Senate Bill 264, a ban on gun shows held on public property that was passed and signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom. The state has been regulating gun show operations almost out of existence and more restrictive than brick-and-mortar retail gun shops or even internet sales, explained SAF founder and executive vice president Alan M. Gottlieb. Quote, now the California Senate Bill 256 ban amounts to a total deprivation of rights under the color of law, including the First Amendment right to free speech and freedom of assembly, and the 14th Amendment's equal protection under the law. This lawsuit follows our successful action against the Del Mar Fairgrounds, he added. But the regulatory ban regime now in place in California applies to any gun show on public property anywhere in the state. What is alarming to us is that the Crossroads of the West has followed the rules, and so have vendors at their gun shows. Yet the state is prohibiting constitutionally protected activities that are common all over the country and are already highly regulated. Like it or not, Gottlieb observed, gun shows are public forums where like-minded people can meet and discuss various issues, engage in firearm sales and purchases, learn about gun safety, and enjoy the camaraderie inherent at such events. Obviously, the defendants don't like that, but they simply cannot violate constitutional rights to satisfy a personal disdain.
Yeah, and SAF has won when they went against the Del Mar Fairgrounds. They won in court, and I very much expect this to be won in the same fashion.
You know, I think what California is doing is anything and everything they can to try to kill the gun culture. Gun shows, and while it's not in our show notes, also a lot of ranges now are banning those who are under 18 from even coming to the range because it could violate a new California law. Mm-hmm. I just read about a 16-year-old who is a skeet shooter, skeeter trap, one or the other, who hopes to be an Olympian. She's that quality of a shooter. She's having a hard place to find to train. And SAF, and I'm pretty sure SAF is also involved with the California Rifle and Pistol Association suing on that right now. Mm-hmm. So, but back to my original point, they are trying to kill the gun culture. They're trying to do, I mean, half the time when I'm at a gun show, more talking politics than anything else. Talking guns with people, not buying anything. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. They try to keep like-minded people away from one another.
On the bullet, just an hour ago we wrapped up. We talked about a story today where it was a Tom Knighton story where the California State skeet shooting, high school skeet shooting league shut down. And in the entire history of the California skeet shooting league, they never had a single injury, not anybody even tripping, walking to the range and spraining an ankle. 0 injuries. Name me another high school sport that can claim that.
Right. Isn't that the craziest? I mean, so they've shut down an entire scholastic opportunity because there's scholarships, there's all kinds of things associated with it. And I know here in Ohio, we've got a gal that is local to me that has Olympic aspirations. And the amount of time and effort that she has put into it to get to this place that she's at right now, I cannot even imagine being the parents of a teen who is in California that is in that place. I mean, so does that mean that they pick her up and take her to another state? Does that mean, the family can't live in California? What does it really mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and this was brought up too. Let me get this one up. There we go. George Geller says, "Bet you nobody can trace a single crime to the Del Mar gun show." Not only that, I think when a gun show happens locally, that crime goes down, because you never know if somebody's going to the gun show, if they've got a gun on them, or if they're coming back if they got a gun on them. I would say at least very short term, gun shows drive down crime while they're happening.
Well, look at the statistics of when the NRA is in town for an annual convention and what happens to the crime numbers.
Yeah.
Yep. How old was Kim Rhode when she won her first Olympic medal? 16? Something like that?
I do not know, but that's a very good question.
Yeah, I'm kind of clueless on that one too. I'm not clueless, however, on the clock. We are down at the bottom of the hour. We do need to step aside for another break. We will have more news discussion when we come back, and we'll do that right after we hear from CNJFO.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
And welcome back. We're continuing the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Charlie, you got something to say?
Yes, so I just did a quick little Google search here. Kim Rhode started going on, she started skeet shooting when she was 10. She did her first African safari at age 12. And at age 13, she won her first world champion title in the women's double trap shooting.
Yes. And
there we go.
Pete was on it right as well.
Pete was on it.
Nice.
She was in the Olympics before she was out of high school. The year before she was out of high school.
So there we go.
And continues winning gold. I mean, I'm sure if she were to want to go to the next Summer Olympics, she would win gold again. I'm fairly certain of that.
Here's as a guy who spends the last years teaching kids that aren't into sports. regular sports aren't for everybody. Football, basketball, baseball, this isn't for everybody. Kids like to play music instruments, and they can excel at this even at young ages. Not any of my students, but they can do this at young ages if they put time into it. And Kim Rhode was doing this as a shooter. So obviously she was not into cheerleading and gymnastics and all the stuff that young girls do when they're young girls.
Yeah, and Pete again said she won a gold medal at the 1996 Summer Games, making her the youngest female 27 gold medalist in the history of Olympic shooting. And let's face it, until the eyes start going on you, you can maintain a very high level of competition very late in life.
Wait, double check that, because making her the youngest female, I think that should be 17 gold medalist, because she graduated from high school in 1997.
Yep, yes. Let me get this up.
Yeah, she was born in 1979, I believe it said.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we're all good. We're right on the same page. Yep.
And this from George. And she was born in Whittier, California.
Oh, look at that. And now she wouldn't be, they would have shut her down.
Right.
They absolutely would have. All right, let me close that. And Susan, I think our next story goes to the other side of the nation, where we've got another anti-gun state.
Gun stores in multiple New York counties will now be forced to warn people against buying their products. Albany County passed an ordinance on Monday requiring gun dealers to post a warning about the purported dangers of gun ownership. Those who don't comply with the ordinance could face a $1,000 fine or up to 15 days in jail. The ordinance is nearly identical to one passed by Westchester County in June. The warning reads, "Access to a weapon or firearm in the home significantly increases the risk of suicide, homicide, death during domestic disputes, and unintentional deaths to children, household members, and others. If you or a loved one is experiencing distress and/or depression, call the Crisis Prevention and Response Team at 914-925-5959 or the National Suicide Hotline at 988.
We've discussed this on the bullet three times, and I have no problem in the world with the last sentence of that being put up. The first sentence is wrought with misinformation.
But they get their information from the Giffords organization, and and it is a national organization that provides data. So how could they be wrong?
So is the crime, so is Dr. John Lott's organization.
Yeah, crimeresearch.org.
Yes, .org. Yes.
Right.
I
become one.
Bloomberg.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You.
Well, what I was going to say, you've got the Bloombergers, and mayor of New York. They have a lot of their headquarters is in New York City. I understand that they're looking now for a new attorney, a research attorney, to help them on their investigations. They're only going to pay $85,000 a year. I know $85,000 is a lot, but for a really decent attorney, that's not really much.
And New York?
That'll barely make the payment on their Mercedes. I mean,
their apartment.
Well, that's the way the Mercedes. Benz.
Yeah, and talk about you don't have a right to free speech if the state is forcing you to say something. And let's face it, most of these businesses that are going to be having to put this sign up are individually owned gun stores. And so it's just the state going to the individual and saying, you must say this. That's not freedom of speech.
Well, but let's get real. I mean, on your cigarettes, on bottles of alcohol, there's always a warning statement. So there probably is some precedent for them to force businesses to put something up. The question is whether or not it should be as misleading as this statement.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with Larry here, who says Next up will be a law against freedom and liberty because of the dangers of living in our constitutional society. Yeah, and they would love to go there.
So I was going to say a moment ago that I've become one of these guys that when I read all these stories, whether they're written by Tom Knighton or Cam or John Petrolino or Stephen Gutowski, any of these guys, as soon as I see a paragraph that talks about the Giffords, I skip it. I really do. Because I know that everything else in that paragraph is going to be bunk, and I skip it and go to the next paragraph to see if they change the story.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I'm on blood pressure medication. I've been told to reduce stress in my life, and I do the same thing, but more for my own health reasons.
So I don't know if I'm talking out of school with this, but when I was hanging out with Holly at the CCDL headquarters on Friday, she actually put me to work. She had a bunch of stuff shipped to her house, and she said she goes to the CCDL headquarters about every day, and she had about 8 different boxes of stuff to take up there that she gets shipped to her house that we had to take to the CCDL headquarters. One of them was these little squares that they had printed out with a QR code to the CCDL website, and on one side was the QR code. On the other side was just how to do voter registration. And she had thousands of these printed up, and she said the game plan is to go to gun stores, to give these out to gun stores, to have them put them in all of the gun boxes of all of the purchases that people are making. And it's not telling them how to vote. It's just saying, hey, listen, you know what? It's important to vote, and here's here's how you do it. And if you click through our website, that would be awesome. And they've done the same thing with the WTTA, with the Walk and Talk America, where they put little pamphlets in the gun cases when you buy a new gun, and the same thing with the cable locks, and the same thing with the suicide prevention stuff. So it sounds like it's a good idea, but then when you start to put, having a gun in the home increases suicide, homicide, and domestic violence, you're like, wait a second, this seems a little crazy.
Yeah.
Why would they want to go to that extreme?
I would love to see the statistics and pick those statistics apart, because I honestly believe they're all totally bunk.
Right. But see, Charlie, when you say why would they go to these extremes, remember when they wanted to, and I don't buy cigarettes, so I don't know, but at one point they wanted to put pictures of throat cancer victims on the back of every pack of cigarettes so that it would horrify you.
Yeah.
I do remember, oh my God, what's his name? Leary.
Larry?
The comedian. Leary, Leary.
Dennis Leary?
Dennis Leary, thank you. I was going to say Timothy O'Leary, but that's the bass player from the Eagles. Dennis Leary did he had a great, I know, right? This is all the problems with my brain. He had a whole comedy segment that he did in the late 80s called No Cure for Cancer. And he was like, listen, he loves smoking. He's like, you could put lungs on there. You could put that this is going to kill you when you take one puff, and he's going to smoke anyway.
Yep.
The only Leary that I was thinking of when you started rolling that out was Mrs. O'Leary's cow.
Well, I thought you said Larry. The only Larry that was coming into my mind was Larry Bird, and I was wondering where you were going with that one. But
where exactly? Where are we going with this, Charlie? That's what a lot of people try to figure out.
Yeah, when you were saying Timothy Leary, I was thinking of that professor that was pushing LSD. Yeah, turn on, drop out.
Oh yeah,
right, and drop a load.
All right, let's. We got one more story. Yeah, Susan, save us, will you?
After violent unrest and looting in 2020 that Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot admitted had spread like wildfire throughout parts of Chicago, the mayor nonetheless urged Chicagoans not to take matters into their own hands in this concealed carry state. Do not pick up arms and try to be the police. If there's a problem, call 911, she said. We will respond.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago residents, it seems, have little reason to believe her. Residents who called 911 for police help last year were reportedly left waiting in more than half of high priority level 1 and 2 calls. Priority level 1 calls, the most urgent, include incidents where there is an imminent threat to life, bodily injury, or major property damage or loss, while priority level 2 are those where timely police action has the potential to affect the outcome of an incident. Analysts using data obtained from the Chicago Police Department found that in 2021 there were 406,829 incidents of high-priority emergency service calls for which there were no police available to respond. That was 52% of the 788,000 high-priority 911 service calls dispatched in 2021. The calls involved serious crimes like in-progress assaults or batteries, persons shot or stabbed, robberies, domestic violence, and violations of court protection orders.
They are not coming to help you. You don't need a gun. You got the police. Why would you need a gun? Because they're not coming. That's why.
And let's get real. How many police officers are stationed on the block that Lori Lightfoot and her wife live on? Probably at least 1 or 2 cars there, 24 hours a day, every day.
Even when she's not there, even when she's at City Hall and she's got her protective detail there, they leave people behind to protect her home. I'm certain of that.
Sure, and that's just telling you more police officers. You know what I mean? So there's some that are at her house, there's some that are at a house, and there's some that are with her at City Hall, and some that are with her all the time. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Does Obama still have a house in Chicago?
I don't know.
There's only Martha's Vineyard and D.C. I know that was going to be his retirement home, but, Martha's Vineyard's a lot nicer.
Well, yeah.
So is Hawaii.
Yes.
Yeah, one would. If I were going to retire to anywhere, it would. Trust me, as somebody who's been to Chicago a lot, I would go just about anywhere else other than Chicago. I would consider D.C. over Chicago. I would certainly consider anywhere in free America over Chicago. Yeah, and I was wrong. I scrolled a bit too far. We do have one more story. Why don't we get to that one, Susan?
On Saturday, August 6th, 2 hikers came face-to-face with a black bear in Jasper National Park in eastern British Columbia. The bear was only 30 meters away from the hikers when they encountered it on the popular Overlander Trail. One of the hikers fired off their 20-gauge shotgun to try to scare the bear away, but the bear didn't retreat. The hiker fired again, this time hitting the bear, which rolled down a creek bank. The hikers immediately left the scene. Skipping down a little in the story, an official told the CBC that a hiker using a loaded firearm in self-defense in the national park was unprecedented, adding that the hiker was charged with several counts under the Canada National Parks Act. It's not immediately clear what those charges are and what kind of punishment the hiker may face. Parks Canada typically recommends that people traveling in bear country carry bear spray and know how to use it.
I guess that is good advice. However, I'm worried that if I were to use bear spray on a bear, it would find that I'm just a spicy human. Maybe they like spice.
Well, you've seen the joke about the fact that you're supposed to use bear spray and put little bells on your shoes, and then you can tell bear scat because it smells like bear spray and has little bells in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the story? What's the story about somebody that used a .22 to protect themselves from a bear, and they shot their friend in the knee and ran like hell?
That's it. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was recently a bear story where they fired a handgun and their hand was in the bear's mouth when they finally fired.
Oof.
So, because that's how close it was, because the first couple shots didn't do anything. And the final one, they hit the roof of the bear's mouth, and that was the only thing that saved them.
It's point blank, literally.
Yes.
And very
it's at arm's length.
Well, and think about this: the first shot did not scare the bear off. I'd say their life was absolutely immediately in danger, and there was nothing bear spray was going to do about that.
But they're going to say, well, why did he have a gun in the first place? That's where they're going with this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and thank God we live not in British Columbia, Canada, but in the United States where we have a Second Amendment. And believe it or not, Barack Obama signed into law National Park Carry, guaranteeing us the right to carry in national parks. Now, that doesn't include the buildings, but in the national parks, you can carry all throughout the United States.
Right.
I mean, you look at Canada, and you don't have a right to even defend yourself in your home with a firearm, much less against a bear.
Yeah.
Bears have to eat, too.
I'm
9 out of 10 bears prefer bear spray.
They prefer spicy humans over regular humans.
Right.
I think the fact that he brought a 20 gauge with him thought he wasn't going to run into a bear.
Right.
All right. We got a comment here about Obama's living situation and gun websites. In 2005, Obama bought a house after receiving a book deal. The house was valued at $1.6 million at that time in the Hyde Park area. He made it clear he would not live there after his presidency. And he says, according to the internet. Of course, everybody knows if you read it on the internet, it's true. So, you know.
That's what Abe Lincoln says.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about that ringing endorsement. I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in a suburb of Chicago, but I'm not going to live there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, $1.6 million.
Yeah.
Right. He was a community. What do they call him? A community
organizer.
Right. And this is the community he organized.
Yeah, in 2005, so he wasn't even president yet then, was he?
No. Was he elected to the Senate in 2004 or 2006? I think 4.
Oh, man.
Well, his wife Michelle got the $350,000 a year job at the University of Chicago after he was elected U.S. Senator as a legal.
Well, they had picked him right off the bat. He was a
super assistant deputy. Yeah.
Right. So he was very young in his political career when the Dems picked him out to say this is our rising star, and the book deal came and the money came and it kind of went from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle grew up in Chicago. They were married there, and their daughters were both born there. Okay, so maybe they're gonna make the kids live in the house.
Got it.
And if you think about it, the guy he ran against in the U.S. Senate, who he would have run against, had been a partner in Goldman Sachs, gave it up to teach in the inner city for free, had been married to a Miss Illinois, was clean as the driven snow, except for his divorce. And if they had not pulled up his divorce papers, the guy could have possibly won against Obama. And Obama wasn't even the leading candidate to get the Democratic nomination for Senate until he did the same thing to one of his opponents who was leading him.
Wow.
Let me one more comment, and then we got to get to break. but it's going to be a short show tonight anyway. But George Geller says Obama's book deals were awfully sweet. Well, I would say that's just as sweet as Biden's son's art deals that are being sold. His getting $500,000 pieces of art from somebody that never, ever did art, and he's selling $1 million. Yeah,
right. I think you could take sweet off that sentence. Obama's book deal was awful.
Yes. Yes. All right. We're going to step aside to break. When we come back, again, no DGUs tonight because I didn't remember that our writer wasn't going to be doing it until way too late. So, we're going to step aside for one more break. When we come back, we'll let everybody know what we've been up to in media. And we'll shut the show down. We'll do that right after we hear from JPFO. Hang on, everybody. Back after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. JPFO.org.
Everybody, welcome back to the final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. John, I'm going to start with you as we work our way out tonight. What's been going on over at Only Guns and Money that you want to talk about, man?
Well, I got a couple recent posts I'd like to point out. Some documents have been released related to Operation Fast and Furious. You may remember that episode from the Obama administration in which 2 federal law enforcement officers and at least 300 Mexican nationals were killed using firearms allowed to be, quote, walked across the border to the cartels. The goal was to push gun control in the U.S. by having Mexicans get killed or something like that. The new documents illustrate just how ATF planned to track the firearms through GPS signal stuck in the stock, etc. And the second post regards a shareholder proposal by a group of Michigan nuns that would basically hamstring Smith & Wesson's ability to do business. They want S&W to adopt some amorphous UN human rights proposal that would increase the company's liability as well as ignore their fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it doesn't pass, but we have seen proposals like this in the past get through and get passed. I know Ruger had one, Smith & Wesson's had one in the past as well. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
All right. And one more comment came in that I absolutely want to highlight because it is great news. Dana says he'll be back for next week's show. So
missed you, Dana.
All right, Charlie, let's move on to you, bud. What's riding shotgun with Charlie? Or anything else? Writing shotgun with Charlie? Anything else you want to plug, bud?
Yeah, I am going to be working on next week's show, which I believe is going to be one of the shows I filmed at the NRA annual meetings in Dallas. And if you haven't checked out last week's shows, please do. I had a great show with 3 ladies that were at the Rick Ector event. I did some before and after, before they went shooting and after they went shooting. And the show with Stephen Williford was really good as well. So there's, like I said, we talked a lot of training with that. And this coming weekend, I am heading to Nashville, and I think I'm going to be filming a show down there on the streets of Nashville. So I'm looking forward to that and hoping that comes through. Amanda,
cool.
What has been happening? What has been happening with you and the Women for Gun Rights and Eye on the Target and Portage County GOP and everything you're involved with? Everything Crosley related.
Right? He's got us.
Where is he tonight?
Right there.
Here, we had to sneak in at the very, very end. So, so last week on Women for Gun Rights, I interviewed Audrey Danielson, and man, that woman is amazing. So she actually has convinced the school that in Michigan to have hunter safety classes, to have a shooting team, and and their classes. So it's an amazing program that she has put together, and it was eye-opening, absolutely eye-opening. So this Friday's guest is still up in the air, so we'll see who we end up with, and then the Eye on the Target radio stuff. Rob has been extremely animated for the last couple of weeks, and in some cases that's slightly scary when you allow him the reins to the show.
And I want to say they are absolutely live without a net. They don't even have a 7-second delay. I know this as their video producer. So
right.
What he says goes out nationwide.
Right. And there's times when I look at him all like, yeah, it's like
Thank
a
you for tuning into
signal.
the last. Right.
To
Thank
the
you
very
for tuning
last
into the
episode.
last episode.
Right. I'm like, you can't say that. That's it.
We need to change it from the George Carlin rules to the Rob Campbell rules.
Oh my goodness. There's some rules. He just looks at me, he's like, what? Yeah. No. It's amusing, it's amazing. And you never can tell what's gonna happen next. So, and Krause says hey to everybody.
All right. Well, on my end, I'd like to encourage everybody tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time. Again, the only time zone that matters, but 5 p.m. Central Time. Tune in to The Bullet. Paul Malone will be there, and we'll be interviewing him about his new book. And I close the tab. I want to get this absolutely right.
Rules for Anti-Radicals.
Yes, Rules for Anti-Radicals. We'll be talking with him tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that, but we'll be here every day, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time. Please do come tune us in. And for tonight, thanks for watching, everybody. And where am I? There I am. That does wrap up tonight's episode then. And for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Okay, we are clear of recording. We're still on the air. For everybody that has been watching, thank you again. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this down simply because I'm starving and I want to go make dinner. We're having really light dinner tonight, though. BLTs is the main course for dinner. So
Make it.
I'm gonna go make dinner. I'm gonna shut all this down and all the